The rain was coming down in thick, cold sheets that night, blurring the city lights and turning every street into a river of reflections. Armin gripped the steering wheel of his old car, his heart racing as he glanced at the woman slumped unconscious in the passenger seat. She was his boss, powerful, respected, and feared in the office, and tonight she was completely helpless. Just hours earlier she had been standing tall at a company celebration, but now she could barely breathe steadily, her world spinning out of control. Armin, a quiet single father who had spent years surviving one struggle after another, had no idea that helping her get home would change everything about his life by the next morning. Before we go further, if you believe that kindness, second chances, and small good deeds can change lives, take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Lonely Dad Strong Heart. Your support keeps these stories alive. Armin's life had never been easy. Every morning before sunrise, he would wake up in his tiny rented apartment where the paint was peeling off the walls and the heater barely worked during cold nights. His 6-year-old daughter slept peacefully in the small bed beside his, unaware of how much her father struggled every single day to keep their lives together. Her mother had left years ago when the pressure of poverty and responsibilities became too heavy, and since then Armin had carried the weight of both parents on his shoulders. He cooked, cleaned, worked long hours, and still tried to smile so his daughter would believe the world was safe. At work, Armin was invisible to most people. He worked as a driver and sometimes assisted with office errands. His boss, the company's director, was known for her strict personality and impossible standards. Employees whispered about her behind closed doors, saying she was cold and unreachable. Armin rarely spoke to her except when he drove her to meetings or waited outside office buildings while she handled important deals. To him, she was simply someone far above his world, someone who lived in expensive neighborhoods and made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. That night, the company had organized a celebration after closing a major business deal. Armin had been asked to stay late to drive some executives home. The event hall was filled with laughter, music, and bright lights that made Armin feel even more out of place. He stood quietly near the exit, waiting for instructions, thinking about how late it was getting and how his daughter was probably asleep without him there to tuck her in. Hours passed, and people began leaving in groups, some laughing loudly, others stumbling after drinking too much. Eventually, Armin noticed his boss standing alone near the parking area. Her posture was different from her usual confident stance. She looked tired, almost lost. When she tried to walk toward her car, she nearly fell. For a moment, Armin hesitated. Approaching someone like her felt risky. But something inside him refused to ignore the situation. He walked over carefully and offered help. She could barely respond, her voice weak and unfocused. It was clear she had drunk far more than she could handle. Armin helped her into the car, carefully fastening the seatbelt. The rain started just as he began driving, and the streets became quiet except for the sound of water hitting the windshield. The journey felt strangely heavy, as if the night itself was holding secrets. As he drove, Armin couldn't stop thinking about how fragile people really were. In the office, his boss seemed untouchable, someone who controlled everything around her. Yet here she was, vulnerable and unable to even stay awake. It reminded him of his own life, how quickly things could fall apart. When they finally reached her large house on the edge of the city, Armin realized another problem. She was too weak to walk inside alone. The security guard at the gate recognized her and opened the entrance, but no one else seemed to be around. With careful effort, Armin supported her and guided her inside, step by step, making sure she didn't fall. The house was enormous, quiet, and strangely empty. The lights reflected off polished floors, but there was no warmth in the place. No family photos on the walls that showed laughter, no sounds of people talking, just silence. Armin gently helped her sit on a couch and placed a glass of water nearby. He made sure she was safe and comfortable before leaving. He didn't look around much because he felt like he didn't belong there. To him, this was just a moment of humanity, helping someone who needed help. As he stepped back outside into the rain, Armin felt a strange sense of calm. He didn't expect anything from the situation. In his life, good deeds rarely brought rewards. Still, he believed that doing the right thing mattered, even if no one noticed. He drove home late that night, exhausted. When he entered the apartment, his daughter was still asleep, holding the small toy rabbit he had given her years ago. Armin sat beside her for a moment, brushing her hair gently. In that quiet moment, he whispered a promise to himself that he would keep fighting for a better future for her. The next morning began like any other. Armin woke up early, prepared breakfast, and helped his daughter get ready for school. Life felt normal again, the same struggles, the same routine. After dropping her off, he headed to work, unaware that everything was about to change. When he arrived at the office, something felt different immediately. People were whispering and looking in his direction. Normally, no one paid attention to him, but today it felt like the entire building knew something he didn't. Then he was called to the main office floor, a place where employees like him rarely went. His heart pounded as he walked through the glass corridors. Thoughts raced through his mind. Maybe he had done something wrong. Maybe helping his boss last night had caused trouble. When the office door opened, Armin froze. His boss was standing there, completely different from the woman he had seen the night before. She looked calm, serious, and surprisingly emotional. There was something in her eyes that wasn't there before, something softer, something human. The room was quiet, and several senior staff members were present. Armin suddenly felt small, unsure of what was about to happen. But what happened next truly turned his world upside down. Instead of anger or criticism, his boss began speaking about something no one expected. She revealed that the previous night had been one of the worst nights of her life. The deal the company had celebrated had come after months of personal stress and loneliness she had been hiding from everyone. She had realized, during that vulnerable moment when Armin helped her, that despite all her success, she had been living a life disconnected from real people and real kindness. She told the room that the person who showed her the most humanity in that moment wasn't a top executive or a wealthy partner, it was someone most people ignored every day. Armin. What shocked everyone even more was what she announced next. She had spent the entire morning reviewing employee records and learning about Armin's life, about how he had been raising his daughter alone, working extra hours without complaints, and quietly helping others whenever possible. She had also realized how many hardworking people like him were struggling silently inside the company, and in front of everyone, she made a decision that changed not only Armin's life but also the culture of the workplace. She announced a new employee support program that included education assistance for workers' children, fair promotions for overlooked staff, and improved salaries for lower-income employees. But that wasn't all. She asked Armin to step forward and offered him a new position, one that involved coordinating employee welfare and community outreach. It was a role created specifically because of what she had witnessed the night before. Armin stood there, overwhelmed. His mind struggled to process what was happening. Just hours ago, he had been worried about paying rent and buying school supplies. Now he was being given a chance to change his life and help others like him. For the first time in years, Armin felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The days that followed were not easy, but they were different. Armin worked harder than ever, learning new responsibilities and proving that the trust placed in him was not a mistake. His daughter's life slowly improved too. She started smiling more, and their home began to feel less like a place of survival and more like a place of dreams. But the biggest change wasn't money or status. It was respect. People in the office began to see Armin not as someone invisible, but as someone who represented something important. The power of kindness and humility in a world that often forgets both. And his boss, the woman once known for being distant and unapproachable, started changing as well. She spent more time listening to employees, understanding their struggles, and building a workplace where people mattered more than numbers. All because of one moment on a rainy night when someone chose to help instead of walking away. Now, before we reach the ending of this story, I have a special request for you. Write in the comments, "Kindness always comes back." It helps spread this message to more people who might need it today. Years later, Armin would often think about that night when the rain blurred the city lights and his life seemed ordinary and heavy. He realized something powerful: sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest changes, not only for others but for ourselves too. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to Lonely Dad's Strong Heart. Your support helps bring more emotional stories like this to life. Because in a world where people are often rushing past each other, Sometimes all it takes to change a life is stopping to help someone get home.